My mother, Evelyn, always had a flair for theatrics. So, of course, her birthday dinner was held at her favourite spot, a rustic Italian restaurant on the 24th floor, candles flickering in crystal holders, violins sighing in the background. She called it intimate. I called it an annual performance. We sat around a table that had seen more staged smiles than honest conversations. My father, Michael, folded napkins, like they might reveal secrets. My younger brother, Jason, star of the family, light of her world, twirled his pasta like a prince waiting for his next wish to be granted. I was there too. Claire, the eldest, the afterthought, the one with a full-time job, a condo I paid for myself, and bills no one else touched. Thinking of getting a new car, Jason announced, as casually as someone might ask for Parmesan. Something with a drop top, something fun. Evelyn lit up like the sky on New Year's. You should treat yourself, sweetheart. You work so hard. Jason worked part-time at a sneaker boutique. He spent more time curating his Instagram than at the register. And for 2 years, I had been covering half his rent, an arrangement my mother pretended didn't exist. Then came the moment that shifted something inside me. Claire, she said, swirling her wine. Would you mind helping him out a bit? You're doing well now, aren't you? The request wasn't new. But something about the way she said it, so entitled, so offhand, like I was the one being difficult, made my chest tighten. I already pay half his rent, I said, voice quiet but firm. That's enough. Silence fell, thick and choking. Evelyn's face didn't fall, it hardened. It's just a little help, she hissed. You're being selfish. Jason looked confused, then hurt, then smug. And something in me snapped, not loud, but final, like a string pulled too tight for too long. I won't be paying it anymore, I said, rising, calm as a mirror. Not the rent, not the car, not anything. You ungrateful brat, Evelyn spat. No, I said, reaching for my coat. I'm just done being your personal ATM. The city lights outside shimmered like escape. As I walked out, I didn't look back, but I knew something had broken. And for once, I wasn't the one expected to fix it. You don't realize how deep the rot goes until you stop pretending the house is stable. 3 days after the dinner, the silence from Evelyn and Jason was louder than any screaming match. No texts, no calls. Just an eerie, manufactured calm. I didn't expect gratitude, but part of me hoped they'd at least notice the missing rent payment. They noticed. Jason blew up my phone by Friday. The messages evolved from passive-aggressive guilt trips, thought we were family, to full-blown tantrums. Guess money matters more to you than your brother. He couldn't afford the apartment without me. I knew that. Evelyn knew that. But knowing and caring are different beasts. And Evelyn? She said nothing. Silence from her was always more dangerous than words. It meant calculation. What they didn't know was that I'd already shut down our emergency joint savings account. It had started as a backup, something I stupidly agreed to in case Jason needed a little help. But funny thing, emergencies looked a lot like designer sneakers, bottomless brunches, and weekends in Miami. That account had bled money for 2 years. I never questioned it, because that's what you do when you're the reliable one. But once I checked the statements with clear eyes, the truth stung. I hadn't been generous. I'd been exploited. I pulled every cent, just under $8,000, and closed it without a whisper. That same night, I found a listing on a car resale site. My car, the one I bought at 19, paid off myself, in my name. And there it was, listed with my VIN number, my mileage, my license plate cropped just barely out of frame. I remember staring at the screen for a solid minute, heart pounding like a war drum. Was I being paranoid? Maybe it was a mistake. Maybe someone else had a similar model. Except the photo background was unmistakable. The garage in Evelyn's building. The one I grew up walking past every day after school. The betrayal wasn't sudden. It had been eroding for years, like waves against a cliff. I just hadn't looked down until the foundation was gone. I drove to their building the next day. Evelyn opened the door with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Claire," she said, "this is unexpected. I'd like my car keys," I replied. Her mouth twitched. Michael said, "I'm not here for Dad," I snapped. "I'm here for what's mine." Michael, bless his heart, hovered behind her like a ghost. He didn't speak. He never did when Evelyn was in her element. I got the keys, drove away with the windows down and the radio loud. It should have ended there. But of course, it didn't. 3 days later, a letter arrived in my mailbox. A repossession notice. For the car I owned outright. And that's when I realised Evelyn wasn't done yet. She had forged my signature on a title loan, using my social security number, my birth date, everything. She hadn't just drained my bank account, she had stolen my identity. The envelope sat on my kitchen counter like it knew it didn't belong. I stared at it while the kettle boiled, like maybe if I looked hard enough, the paper would change its mind and tell a different story. Notice of repossession. My car. The same one I'd bought at 19, with every paycheck from that soul-sucking data entry job. I worked while going to night school, paid off in full, title locked in my personal files. My name, no co-signers, no shady clauses. And yet, someone had taken a loan against it. 6 months ago, using a signature that looked unsettlingly familiar. My hands trembled as I dialed the number on the letter. The bank rep was polite in that condescending way that only customer service professionals can master. "Yes, we have the paperwork. All properly signed." "I didn't sign anything," I said, pacing my apartment barefoot on the cold tiles. A long pause. "Well, someone did. And they used your information. Social. Driver's license. Everything. Send me the documents," I said. "Now." It took an hour for the email to land. When it did, I opened the PDFs and felt my stomach tighten into a knot that refused to come undone. The signature was mine, or at least a perfect replica. And the worst part? It was copied from an old college application Evelyn had insisted on filing away for me. She'd been preparing for this long before I said no at that birthday dinner. What kind of mother forges her daughter's name to steal from her? What kind of woman smiles across a candle-lit dinner and plots behind your back? I felt raw, skinned, like my very identity had been weaponized. This wasn't a simple betrayal. This was war. I spent the next few days in a fog of logistics and disbelief. I filed a fraud claim with the bank, but because the documents had my signature and personal info, it would be an uphill battle. They weren't hopeful. So I made a decision. If someone was going to pay off that $7,000 loan, it would be me, but only so I could rip that power out of Evelyn's hands and break the last thread tying me to her. I sold the car myself, a private buyer, a modest price, enough to clear the debt and leave me with just enough for a down payment on a cheaper model. Something used, reliable, and, most importantly, mine. When Evelyn found out, she called. "You had no right," she snapped. I put her on speaker and let her voice echo across my new apartment's blank walls. "You think you're punishing me? You don't know what this is doing to your brother. Jason is struggling. He needs support." "I'm not his parent," I said flatly. "I'm not yours either. You're tearing this family apart." "No," I replied. "You did that when you stole from me." Click. I hung up and blocked her number. Again. But betrayal has layers, like sediment. And when you finally dig, you find there's more buried than you ever realized. A week later, I checked the family savings account, one that I had contributed to since I was 16, because Evelyn said we're a team and it's for our future. The balance, $243.18. It should have been close to $10,000. And then I saw the loan activity. Withdrawals made in Evelyn's name, transfer records to Jason's account, transactions labelled business support, gift for Jay, and one that simply said, help. I didn't cry. I printed the documents, drove to the branch, and withdrew every remaining cent. $7, $853. Not a fortune, but the principal was worth far more. I closed the account. Permanently. That afternoon, Evelyn called from a new number. I let it ring out. Then she emailed, "You're being dramatic. We're family." Funny how family only gets defined when they need something from you. But that wasn't the end. 2 days later, I returned home and knew instantly something was wrong. My apartment door was ajar. The lock busted clean. The smell of cold air and adrenaline rushed in before I even stepped inside. Gone, my laptop, my backup hard drive, my TV. Gone, the watch my grandfather left me. The only person in the family who ever treated me like I mattered. It didn't take a genius to figure it out. I filed a police report, showed the officer the pawn shop listings I'd found online. One had a photo of my watch, clear as daylight. They found it across town. The owner of the shop recognized the seller instantly. Lady came in like she'd done it 100 times, he said. Signed the receipt, Evelyn Moore. The officer blinked. Your mother? I didn't correct him. I didn't say was. I didn't say used to be. I contacted a lawyer the next day, recorded Evelyn's voicemail admitting she borrowed the items for the family, played it for the lawyer, who raised one eyebrow and said, "How far do you want to take this?" "All the way," I answered. I threatened charges, not as leverage, not as manipulation, as closure. She paid me back, dollar for dollar. And I severed every tie. Some people imagine cutting ties with toxic family as a dramatic, all-at-once declaration. One slam of a door, one final scream into the void, and that's it, you're free. But that's not how it happened for me. No, breaking free was quieter. More like the soft unravelling of a sweater you didn't realise had been coming apart for years. One tug, then another, until you're left holding the last thread, realising you're warmer without it. After Evelyn returned the stolen money, under pressure of legal action, I expected a scorched earth reaction. That was her way. If she couldn't control you with guilt, she'd try to destroy you with silence. But instead, there was nothing. No texts, no emails, no midnight calls from unknown numbers. I think she finally realised I wasn't bluffing. Jason, on the other hand, didn't go down as easily. He texted constantly, sometimes in all caps, sometimes with typos that smelled like wine. The messages flip-flopped between rage, "You abandoned US," and desperation, "I'm going to be homeless." One, at 3:12 am, just said, "I miss you." I didn't respond to any of them. I'd learned the hard way. Replying only gave them more room to twist the narrative. Silence was my new language. Michael, my father, in the loosest sense of the word, called once. Left a voicemail that said, "Your mother's not well. This isn't the time to be petty." Petty. What a neat little word for years of theft, manipulation, and emotional erosion. I saved the voicemail but never replied. Maybe I kept it as a reminder of how far I'd come. I changed apartments. Again, not because I was scared, but because I wanted a place that didn't hold memories of arguments at the door, stolen electronics, or the constant fear of finding another piece of my life missing. This new one? Smaller, But it had a balcony and light, real light that touched the hardwood floors like a promise. I also changed jobs, took a role with fewer hours, more flexibility. I had spent so long overworking myself, trying to stay ahead of the next financial demand, that I didn't even know who I was without that pressure. Turns out, I'm someone who likes lemon tea, walking at dusk, and organizing playlists by mood. I started therapy again, with someone new, someone who didn't talk about finding peace through forgiveness, but instead helped me understand the difference between closure and contact, between guilt and grief, because the grief was real, not for Evelyn, but for the idea of her I had carried around like a cracked vase. I grieved the mother I wished I had, the one who protected, who nurtured, who didn't steal and smile at the same time, the one who didn't play favorites, didn't weaponize love, didn't treat my boundaries like insults. It was a strange kind of mourning, one where no one sent flowers, no one showed up with casseroles, just me, letting go of a ghost who never died, just never existed. And then came the email. Subject line, please. I need you. It was from Jason, 6 months after I walked away. He was going to be a father. The mother of the child had left. He was overwhelmed, working 2 jobs. Trying, he said, trying so hard. He attached a photo of the sonogram like proof of worth, like a plea. We're family, he wrote. Family sticks together. I stared at that line for a long time. Family sticks together. I had heard that mantra 1,000 times every time they wanted something. Not because it was true, but because it was effective. For a while, I didn't do anything. Just sat with the message open, breathing it in like smoke. And there it was again, that familiar reflex to fix, to rescue, to bleed for the people who taught me love was measured in sacrifice. But I had learned something in those quiet months. I had learned that loyalty without reciprocity is just servitude, that forgiveness isn't a bridge, it's a door. And I could choose whether or not to open it, so I didn't reply, not immediately. I sat on my balcony that night, watching the lights of the city blink like Morse code, and felt a strange peace settle into my bones. The next morning, I marked the email as spam, not out of cruelty, but out of clarity. Jason would have to learn what I did, that sometimes the only way to heal is to break the cycle. And sometimes the only way to protect what's left of yourself is to stop answering the door when pain knocks and calls itself family. 3 years. That's how long it had been since I said no for the first time and meant it. 3 years of birthdays I spent in silence, holidays where my phone didn't buzz, and mornings where the only person I needed to answer to was myself. I thought peace would feel louder, like celebration. But it was quiet, subtle, like the absence of a headache you didn't realize you'd had for your entire life. My apartment now overlooked the skyline, all soft greys and golden edges at dusk. It wasn't big, but it was mine. Every piece of furniture chosen with intention, every lock secured with peace of mind. I had become the kind of woman I used to admire from afar, steady, whole, untethered. Work had shifted too. I wasn't chasing promotions anymore. I was choosing projects that meant something. Ones where I could breathe. My weekends weren't filled with damage control or financial spreadsheets trying to compensate for someone else's recklessness. They were filled with people who showed up without asking for anything but time and laughter. It wasn't a fairy tale. I didn't find a perfect ending tied with a bow, but I found something better, consistency. And then, because life has a sense of irony sharper than any script, I saw Evelyn at the grocery store. I was standing in the produce section, comparing apples like it was a life-altering decision, when I felt it. that familiar weight of being watched. I looked up, and there she was, frozen by the bananas, holding a mesh bag of oranges like she might drop it. She looked older, not in the way time softens a person, but in the way resentment hollows them out. Her eyes were tired, her mouth pinched, like it had forgotten how to smile without edge. We locked eyes. For a moment, the noise of the store faded. Just two women with a shared history and nothing left to say. But then she approached, slowly, cautiously. "You look well," she said, her voice thinner than I remembered. "I am well," I replied, even tone. "True." She fiddled with her purse strap, a nervous tick I hadn't seen since I was a kid. "Your brother named his baby after you. That stopped me, not out of sentiment, but out of sheer baffled disbelief." "He's still living with you?" I asked. She nodded. "Trying, though. Working. Taking classes. It's not easy, but," she trailed off, "I didn't feel anything. No pang of regret. No rush of guilt. Just distance. Like hearing about someone else's life in a story you used to care about." "I've been doing some thinking," she said, then hesitated. "About everything." I waited. Not out of hope, but because I knew she needed me to. I should have stepped in. I should have protected you. I should have seen it. The words came slowly, like they cost her something to say. I nodded. "You should have." Tears gathered in her eyes, but she blinked them away. "I don't expect you to forgive me. Or him. I just wanted you to know I understand now why you left. I didn't speak, didn't move. Just let her words hang there between us, like a fragile truce. Then, unexpectedly, she reached out. Her hand touched my arm, not possessive, not pleading, just a gentle, tentative gesture. "I'm proud of you," she whispered. "I should have said that more." And something in me, not pain, not forgiveness, but something quieter, shifted, like a door opening just enough to let the breeze through. "Thank you," I said, and meant it. We didn't exchange numbers, didn't plan lunch or holidays, or make promises we wouldn't keep. She walked away with her groceries. I watched her go, wondering if that was the last time I'd ever see her. If it was, I was okay with that. Not because I had healed completely, but because I had accepted what healing actually looks like. It's not perfection. It's not reconciliation wrapped in redemptive music. Healing looks like boundaries you don't have to defend anymore, like silence that doesn't ache, like birthdays that feel like beginnings, not tests. Sometimes I still dream of a different version of us, the version where my mother defended me, where Jason stood on his own, where family didn't feel like a battlefield, but dreams aren't debts. And I no longer owe anyone the fantasy of forgiveness they didn't earn. I have chosen a life where I am no longer reduced to what I can give, where I don't need to prove I'm worthy by bleeding, where love is not a currency and peace is not a bribe. Some days there's still a hollow ache, like phantom pain from a limb I never really had, but mostly there's peace and space and the sweet, unfamiliar quiet of being free. And if that's not family, I don't know what is. Story 2, they say you don't really know someone until life tests them. I used to believe my husband, Nathan, and I were solid, partners in every sense of the word. I worked as a senior product manager in tech, good salary, great benefits, and I took pride in being financially independent. We lived in a modest house I mostly paid for, and we had plans. Big ones. Family was important to both of us. Nathan had a younger brother, Liam, and they were close. After their dad passed away years ago, they took care of their mum, Diane. At first, I admired that. Diane seemed nice, chatty, supportive in a backhanded compliment sort of way. She'd sip her wine and say things like, "Tech jobs are so glamorous." I wish I understood what you do, but it must be important. It wasn't glowing praise, but I took what I could get. Our early years were filled with backyard barbecues, Thanksgiving dinners crammed with cousins, and game nights that always ended in laughter. It felt warm, it felt real, but warmth can be a mask. It started subtly eye rolls when my name came up, whispers between Nathan, Liam, and Diane that stopped when I entered the room. One New Year's Eve, I overheard Diane mocking Nathan's cousin for her outfit, calling her thrift store chic, like it was a disease. They all laughed, including my husband. I remember standing in the kitchen, my hand frozen mid-pour over a glass of wine, realizing I didn't recognize the people in that room. Over time, the snide comments became routine. Diane had something to say about everyone, and I began to wonder, what did she say about me when I wasn't around? One Easter, she went too far. We were gathered in the living room, and she made a low comment about another relative's car, something about rent-to-own embarrassment. I couldn't hold back. Maybe keep your voice down, I said, trying to stay calm. Janet's right here. Diane's smile didn't reach her eyes. Oh, looks like we offended your delicate feelings, Olivia. Nathan didn't defend me. He stared at the floor as if willing the moment to disappear. After that, family gatherings became a battlefield. I sat alone more often than not, nursing my drink while Nathan parked himself next to his mother like her emotional support human. I stopped asking him to stand up for me, because his response was always the same. She's my mum. What do you expect me to do? What I expected was loyalty. What I got was silence. Then, just when I thought I couldn't feel more alienated, I found out I was pregnant. I'd been feeling off for weeks, exhausted, nauseated, irritable. A test confirmed it, 2 pink lines. I remember the moment so vividly, sitting on the bathroom floor, test in hand, heart racing. Nathan? I called, and he came into the room, eyes wide when he saw the result. He hugged me, and I held on tight, hoping this baby would bring us closer. It didn't. Pregnancy hit me hard. I was diagnosed with a rare complication affecting my vision. The blurriness worsened until I couldn't work anymore. My doctor put me on bed rest, and quitting my job wasn't a choice, it was survival. Nathan drifted. He blamed work, blamed stress. But most nights, he didn't come home until late. I stopped asking where he'd been because I didn't want to hear another lie about happy hour with the guys. The day of the C-section arrived, and he wasn't in the delivery room. He said he's waiting outside, the nurse told me gently. That was the first crack I couldn't patch over. Our son, Eli, was perfect. A tiny miracle that made every struggle worth it. But Nathan's response? Cold, detached. This whole hospital thing, he muttered in recovery. It's not how it's supposed to be. Men should meet their kids at home, not in surgical gowns. I wish I could say I was shocked, but honestly, I was just tired. Bone deep tired from healing, from trying, from caring more than he ever did. The weeks that followed were brutal. Eli cried, constantly colic, the doctor said. Nathan's only input was complaining. Can't you shut him up? He's a baby, Nathan. The first snapped once. He's teething. He's in pain. You care more about that kid than me. That night, I cried in the laundry room with the dryer running so Eli wouldn't hear me. 6 months in, Nathan told me I needed to go back to work. But my vision will get a nanny. We can't live like this. So I did it. I found a job at a smaller firm for half my old salary. My eyes still struggled, but I pushed through. I dropped Eli off each morning, worked as hard as I could, then came home to resentment and silence. 2 years passed. Eli was thriving. I lived for his laughter, his tiny hugs, his wild toddler stories. But Nathan, he was a ghost. And Diane? still a queen on her throne, judging everyone with Liam by her side. Then another surprise. I was pregnant again. My reaction? Fear. I called Nathan at work. "I'm pregnant," I said, voice shaking. His response? "Don't quit your job. We can't afford that." Click! The second pregnancy was easier physically but lonelier than ever. I carried a child while shouldering a mortgage, a full-time job, and the emotional vacuum that had become my husband. And then came Thanksgiving. It started out okay. My parents came, a few friends. I cooked with swollen ankles and an aching back. I was proud. I'd made it work. Then Liam showed up with a fiancée. Her name was Claire, and she was everything Diane wanted in a daughter-in-law: polished, wealthy, successful. Diane arrived a few minutes later, and the way she looked at Claire, like she was royalty. At dinner, Diane fawned over Claire, barely acknowledging me. "You work in finance?" she asked, her voice like honey. "Yes," Claire said politely. "Branch manager. Oh, how lovely. So accomplished. Some women only make babies and excuses." Everyone heard it. No one said a word. I looked at Nathan, hoping for backup. Nothing. Then Diane stood up. "Let's all go to that new bistro downtown. My treat. Claire deserves a real celebration." They all left. Even Nathan. I cleaned up alone, my belly aching, my eyes burning. Later that night, I saw the photos on social media. Nathan and his real family toasting glasses, smiling like I didn't exist. That's when something inside me broke, not with grief, but clarity. 3 days before my scheduled C-section, Nathan came home in a whirlwind, stuffing clothes into a suitcase. "What's going on?" I asked. He avoided eye contact. "Liam's wedding is in Hawaii. We're going." I laughed. "I'm having surgery in 3 days. You'll manage." That's all he said before he slammed the door. I checked our bank account. Empty. All the savings I'd put aside for maternity leave, gone. A sharp pain hit my abdomen. Then water. Then panic. I called 911. The next thing I remember is waking up in the hospital, my mother holding my hand. "You're okay," she whispered. "And so is the baby." Nathan never called. Not once. Coming home from the hospital should have felt like a celebration. New baby, new chapter. But instead, I left with stitches, 2 children under 3, and a hollow silence where my husband should have been. My parents took us in without hesitation. No questions, no judgment, just warmth. They cooked, they cleaned, they held the baby while I cried. I remember sitting on their porch at sunrise, feeding my newborn daughter while Eli played with a toy truck nearby. For the first time in years, I felt something close to peace. 7 days after the birth, Nathan finally called. 3 missed calls, and on the 4th, I answered. "Where the hell are you?" he barked. "Why aren't you at home?" I didn't yell, didn't cry. I just said, "I'm at my parents'. With our kids." I filed for divorce. Silence. Then a laugh, sharp and disbelieving. "You're serious? After everything I've done for you?" I closed my eyes. What exactly would that be? Leaving me pregnant and alone? Emptying our savings for your brother's wedding? God, you're dramatic. You'll be crawling back when you realize you need me. But here's the thing I didn't. I'd already survived the worst moment of my life without him. What else could he possibly offer? He tried a new tactic. You always held me back. You never believed in my ideas. Claire does. She offered me a job at her bank. We're starting a new firm. You'll see, I'm going to be rich. You're just a bitter, broke woman who doesn't see potential when it's right in front of her. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. The divorce moved quickly. To my surprise, Nathan didn't fight for anything. Not custody, not the house, not even visitation. He just signed the papers, sent a half-hearted apology email, and disappeared. probably thought he was trading up. What he didn't know was that I'd kept every receipt, every mortgage statement, every text message showing how little he contributed. The judge awarded me full custody, the house, and thanks to his little gift fund, stunt court mandated repayment of the stolen money. When I walked back into my house with Eli holding one hand and my newborn cradled in the other, Nathan was there, grabbing the last of his things. He looked me up and down and sneered. "Enjoy this dump while you can. I'll be in a mansion by next year." I didn't flinch, just said, "Good luck." Then I locked the door behind him and breathed. The following months weren't easy, but they were honest. No more walking on eggshells. No more pretending. I found my rhythm as a working mum, rejoining the tech world part-time with flexible hours. My company even invested in accessibility tools for my vision issues. Eli adjusted surprisingly well. He still asked about Daddy sometimes, but I answered gently and honestly, and he stopped needing the answer. I cut contact with Diane, Liam, and the rest of them. Blocked numbers. No social media. Just peace. Until, of course, karma caught up. One quiet Tuesday, I was scrolling the news during a lunch break. My baby girl asleep in the crib and Eli at preschool. Then I saw the headline, "Local banker investigated for massive fraud scheme, millions missing." I blinked. There it was, Claire's name, Liam's too, and Nathan's. Turns out Claire wasn't exactly who she claimed to be. She wasn't a branch manager, she'd fabricated her resume with stolen credentials. The new firm she'd started with Nathan and Liam, completely fake. No license, no investors, no real operations. She'd convinced them all to take out massive loans, even mortgage. Diane's house to fund her vision. The office space was a rented WeWork. The client meetings, fake. And Claire, gone, vanished. They lost everything. Linda's house, Liam's car, even the suits Nathan had just bought. Creditors swept through like a tornado, and all that was left were debts and a pile of lawsuits. You'd think I'd feel triumphant. I didn't. I felt relieved that I'd left before the storm hit. That my children were safe, that I had clawed my way to dry land while they were still wading into the water. Word got around quickly. Friends called. Mutual acquaintances messaged me like they were watching a reality show unfold in real time. Then came the voicemail. "Diane, Olivia, this is your mother-in-law, former mother-in-law, I suppose. We need your help. The children deserve to see their family. You can't keep them from their grandmother." I listened in silence, then played it again just to be sure I heard right. No apology, no acknowledgement of the past, just a plea wrapped in entitlement. I didn't respond. She tried again, texted, called from a new number, left a message saying Nathan missed the kids and wanted to be a real father now. I sat on that one for a day. Then I picked up the phone, called her back, and said this: "You weren't worried about being a grandmother when you let him walk out on me, 9 months pregnant. You weren't worried about family when you called me a failure over dinner or when you watched him drain my bank account. You all made your choices. Now I'm making mine." And I hung up. Blocked her again. For good this time. I stood in my kitchen that day, holding a cup of coffee, my daughter gurgling in her playpen, and Eli chasing bubbles in the backyard. The house was quiet, warm, safe. We were okay. Actually, we were more than okay, we were free. Time passed, as it always does. Quietly at first. Then like a rushing river once the ice melts. 1.5 years since the divorce, and life had found its rhythm again. My morning started with sleepy giggles and sticky hands, and sometimes the smell of burnt toast when Eli tried to help make breakfast. My daughter, Maya, was walking now wobbly steps, arms out like a tiny warrior learning balance. They were growing. So was I. I'd gone back to work full time. Found a role at a company that didn't blink when I asked about remote options or accessibility tools. It wasn't the flashy corporate ladder anymore, but it was mine. I got to build things again, lead projects, solve problems. It felt good to be needed for something outside of diapers and dinner plans. My parents, bless them, stayed close, not in the hovering way, but like a good campfire, warm, steady, never too far when I needed light. And Nathan? Gone, for real this time. After the fraud came to light, he kept a low profile. No calls, no emails, no birthday cards. I heard from mutual acquaintances that he'd moved into a one-bedroom rental with Liam. Diane, too. They all shared a space now, which felt poetic. From mansion dreams to bunk bed realities. I didn't laugh when I heard it, but I didn't cry either. One day, out of the blue, I saw Nathan. I was at the grocery store with Maya on my hip, and Eli tugging on my coat, excited about dinosaur-shaped mac and cheese. As I turned down the cereal aisle, there he was. Unshaven, thinner than I remembered, eyes darting like he expected someone to jump him. We locked eyes. He looked away first. No words, no nod, nothing. I kept walking. That night, I stayed up late. Not because I was angry. Not because I wanted revenge. I was thinking about how far I'd come. I'd spent so long waiting for someone to see me, fight for me, choose me. And now, I didn't need that anymore. I had something better. Eli started preschool the next month. He came home with glitter in his hair and stories that barely made sense, but made him laugh so hard he couldn't breathe. Maya loved the swing at the park and shouted again every time I tried to lift her out. We spent weekends hiking, baking, dancing in the living room in socks. I even started writing again. Just little journal entries at first, then stories. Eventually, a blog. I shared pieces of my journey quietly, anonymously at first, but people found them. They wrote back, told me my story gave them strength. Funny how healing ripples out when you stop hiding your scars. One afternoon, I got a letter in the mail. Not a text, not an email, a real letter. The envelope was cheap, the handwriting familiar. It was from Diane. Inside, 3 pages of scribbled apologies. She talked about the wedding, about her regrets, about Claire's betrayal, and how it shattered everything we believed in. She said she missed the children, said she'd changed. She asked if she could meet them. I sat with that letter for a long time. It wasn't easy. Part of me wanted to tear it up, throw it into the fire and be done. But another part remembered that I wasn't just living for myself anymore. So, I didn't answer right away. I talked to my therapist, talked to my parents, talked to the mirror. Eventually, I wrote back. It was short. Thank you for your letter. I'm glad you're reflecting, but I'm not ready to let you into the children's lives. Right now, they need stability, not history. I wish you peace. And that was that. I didn't hear back. A few months later, Eli asked, "Mom, do we have a dad?" I took a deep breath. You had a dad who helped bring you into the world. But right now we have our family. Me, you, your sister, grandma, grandpa. That's what matters. He nodded, satisfied, and went back to building a Lego spaceship. That night, I cried. Not because of sadness, but because I'd finally told the truth. Simple, honest. No fairy tales, no anger. Just truth. Years from now, my kids will ask more, and I'll tell them, not to make them angry, not to make them pick sides, but so they know what survival looks like, what rising looks like, because I want them to know love is not measured in wedding speeches or shared blood. Love is presence, it's protection, it's choosing someone even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. And I choose them every day. One evening, I stood out on my back porch, mug in hand, the sky painted with soft purples and gold. Eli was drawing chalk rockets on the driveway. Maya sat beside him, more interested in eating the chalk than using it. A breeze rustled through the trees, and I realized this was it, not the life I planned, but the life I made, with open hands and a full heart, and nothing left to fear. Story 3. I remember the day my parents sat me down to tell me they were getting divorced. I was 12, sitting cross-legged on the living room rug with a juice box in hand. My mum, Claire, perched on one end of the couch, and my dad, Marcus, was at the other, as if even the sofa knew they couldn't stand to be near each other. "Emma," my mum said, her tone weirdly neutral, "your father and I have something to share with you." Dad cleared his throat. "We're getting a divorce, just like that." As if he were telling me we were out of milk. I didn't get it. My parents didn't scream or throw things like the divorcing couples in movies. They were civil. Distant, sure, but I figured they were just tired or busy. But why? I managed to croak out. Mom offered me that fake customer service smile I'd come to dread. "Sometimes people grow apart, honey. We've met other people." Other people? I felt like I'd been hit by a truck. Dad added almost cheerfully, "You'll mostly stay with your mum, but we'll work out weekends." The shock made my skin feel too tight. "Who are these other people?" "You'll meet them soon," Mum said, brushing my hair back. "My friend's moving in. She has 2 daughters, around your age. And my partner has a son," Dad said like it was a bonus. I bolted upstairs, slammed my door, and sobbed into my pillow. I kept thinking about how, for the past few months, they'd taken me out one-on-one like it was a treat movie with Dad one weekend, coffee shop with Mom the next. Now I realized it wasn't quality time. It was the beginning of the end. Within weeks, Dad was gone. Not just moved out gone, but remarried gone. He'd had a courthouse wedding with a woman I'd never met, and she came with a son about my age. Mum's new husband, Darren, moved in just as quickly with his twin girls, both a year younger than me. At first, I tried. I greeted the girls with a smile, introduced myself, even offered to show them around. "I'm Emma. Wanna see where the good snacks are hidden?" The taller one, Ava, wrinkled her nose. "No thanks. We don't need help from you." The other Lila chimed in, "And just so you know, we're not your sisters." "You're just extra." I stood there, stunned. They pushed past me into what used to be my house and giggled like it was a slumber party. That night, I lay in bed, listening to laughter from downstairs, laughter I wasn't part of. It only got worse. I came home from school the next day and found Ava wearing my favourite hoodie. "That's mine," I said. She shrugged. "Your mum said we could borrow your clothes." I turned to Mum, who didn't even look up from her phone. "Emma, don't be selfish. Sharing is part of being a family." Family? These girls weren't family. They were invaders in my life. Over the next few months, my stuff started disappearing. Toys, clothes, even my sketchbook. Mum gave them away, without asking. One night, I overheard her telling Darren, "We'll just use Emma's birthday money for the twins' phones. She won't mind." Spoiler alert, I did mind. When my birthday actually came around, Mum forgot. She tossed a distracted apology my way, said the twins had a volleyball match, and promised we'd celebrate another time. That time never came. Dad's place wasn't any better. His new wife was pregnant and couldn't care less about me. Her son, Brandon, made it his mission to make me miserable. One night, I woke up to a plastic spider on my face. I screamed, thinking it was real. Everyone rushed in, only to see Brandon smirking in the doorway. "It's just a toy," he said innocently. Dad's wife snapped, "Seriously, Emma? Screaming over a plastic spider?" I looked at Dad, begging for backup. He sighed. I'll take you home in the morning. That was the night I realized something. I didn't really have a home anymore. Back at Mom's, things spiraled further. The twins weren't just mean, they were malicious. One day, I came home to find my favorite ceramic mug smashed on the floor. Oh no, Ava said in that fake sweet voice. We were trying to make you tea and dropped it. So clumsy. Before I could say a word, Darren stormed in. What happened? Emma got mad and broke her mug, Lila said, all wide-eyed and innocent. I was speechless. But Darren didn't ask questions. He grabbed my arm and shoved me into the dusty storage closet. You'll stay in here until you learn to control your temper. I cried, begged, pleaded. Nothing. From outside the door, the twins giggled. Hey, Emma, one called. Did you know there are spiders in there? Big hairy ones. That night, I curled up on a pile of old blankets, shaking with fear. Not because of the spiders, but because I knew I didn't matter. Not to any of them. From then on, I spent as little time at home as possible. I started crashing at my Aunt Mia's house, Dad's sister. She and her husband, Jeremy, never had kids, and they welcomed me like I was their own. What started as a few hours after school turned into days, then weeks. Then one day, my teacher showed up at my mum's house for a surprise home visit. I wasn't there. When the teacher asked where I was, Mum panicked. She's with her father. Wrong answer. The school had already checked. Next thing I knew, Child Protective Services was involved, and suddenly we were in family court. I was 14, sitting on a cold wooden bench, watching my parents argue over who wouldn't take me. You take her, Dad said. I have a newborn. Are you serious? Mum hissed. I'm not giving up my life for Emma's drama. Then something happened that changed everything. Aunt Mia stood up. Your Honour, she said calmly, my husband and I would like to take custody. Everyone turned to look at her. She smiled at me, then back at the judge. We're financially stable, and more importantly, we want her. The judge looked at me. Emma, would you be okay with that? I didn't even hesitate. Yes, please. And just like that, my life changed again. Living with Aunt Mia and Uncle Jeremy felt like stepping into a different universe, one where I wasn't walking on eggshells or waiting to be blamed for something I didn't do. They didn't just give me a roof over my head, they gave me space to breathe, to exist without constantly having to prove I deserved love. The first week was weird. Not bad weird. Like the way Uncle Jeremy always asked me if I was hungry before just handing me a plate. Or how Mia checked in every night, not to interrogate me, but to ask how my day went. It took me a while to realize she actually wanted to know. She wasn't looking for gossip or ammo to twist against me. She genuinely cared. One evening, a few weeks after I moved in, we were eating dinner meatloaf, mashed potatoes, the kind of comfort food I hadn't had in years. Uncle Jeremy looked up and said, So, Emma, what should we call each other now? I blinked at him. What do you mean? Well, he said with a smile, we're officially your guardians. Doesn't feel right to keep calling yous aunt and uncle if we're going to be your full-time parents. Mia reached over and squeezed my hand. No pressure, sweetie, just something to think about. I stared at my plate for a second. These people had shown me more love in a few weeks than my birth parents had in years. Can I call you Mum and Dad? I asked, voice low. Mia's eyes welled up instantly. We'd be honoured, and that was that. I finally had parents who chose me. Who showed up? Who made me feel like I belonged? Over time, I also grew close to Jeremy's mother, who I started calling Grandma June. She was a retired doctor, sharp as a tack, and had the warmest laugh. We'd spend hours in her backyard garden, talking about everything from college to composting. Ever think about becoming a doctor? She asked me once while planting herbs. I shrugged. Maybe. I like science, but it feels big. She patted the dirt off her gloves. Big things start with small steps. You'd be amazing. That stuck with me. By the time I finished high school, I was determined. I graduated with top honors, gave a speech at the ceremony, and when I looked out into the crowd, I saw Mia, Jeremy, and Grandma June beaming with pride. No sign of my birth parents, not that I expected any. I got accepted into a great pre-med program on a full scholarship. It felt surreal. For so long, I'd felt like the unwanted piece in someone else's life. Now I was building something of my own. College was a whirlwind labs, lectures, caffeine-fueled all-nighters. Every time I pulled on my white coat for clinical rotations, I thought of June and her stories of patience, resilience, and grace under pressure. She believed in me before I believed in myself. Then, during my third year, everything changed again. It was a rainy Tuesday. I remember because I'd just gotten out of a brutal anatomy exam and was halfway through a cold grilled cheese when my phone rang. It was Mia. "Emma," she said, voice cracking. "It's Grandma June." She passed away this morning. I froze. The world tilted. No, that couldn't be right. We'd just spoken a few days ago. She was supposed to review my neurology paper this weekend. The days that followed blurred together. The funeral was small, intimate. I stood between Mia and Jeremy, wearing a dress June had bought me for my first internship. I barely heard the eulogy. All I could think about was how much I still needed her. Then came the reading of the will. To my granddaughter, Emma, the lawyer read, "I leave everything, my home, my savings amounting to $1.98 million. I trust you to use it wisely, to build the life I know you're capable of." The room fell silent. My heart raced. Mia reached over and squeezed my hand. She always said she saw herself in you. I nodded, too overwhelmed to speak. But inside, I made a silent promise to live a life that would make her proud. Things settled into a new normal. I was still reeling from the loss, still figuring out what to do with the inheritance, when something strange started happening. Calls, texts, numbers I didn't recognize. I ignored most of them until one day I picked up. "Emma?" a familiar voice said. I paused. "Who is this?" "It's your mother." I hadn't heard that voice in years. I froze, phone pressed to my ear. "I've been thinking about you," she rushed on. "We should catch up. How's college? Are you still studying? What was it, medicine?" I didn't say much, just let her talk. After that, my birth father called too, said he missed me, wanted to reconnect. At dinner that night, I brought it up to Mia and Jeremy. Jeremy chuckled, shaking his head. "Let me guess this sudden interest started after the will." "Yup," I said. Mia sighed. "We'll support you either way. But be careful, Em. Not everyone changes. Some just circle back when they think there's something to gain." They weren't wrong. A few days later, I stood outside the house I used to live in. I didn't know what I expected walking up to that door, but I needed closure. My mum opened it, eyes wide. "Emma," she whispered, tears brimming. "Oh, sweetheart, come in." The whole evening felt like a performance. My stepsisters, Ava and Lila, now grown, acted like we'd been best friends all along. "It's so good to see you," Ava chirped. "You look amazing. We always missed you." I just nodded and smiled politely, but my guard was up. Over dinner, the conversation took a weird turn. My mum sighed, glancing around the room. "This house, it's falling apart," she said dramatically. "The roof's leaking, the plumbing's a mess. And with the girls starting college soon, things are tight." My stepfather added, "Private schools are expensive. It's tough, you know." I didn't respond, just took another bite of my pasta. Then my mum looked straight at me. "Anyway, how's your financial situation these days. I set down my fork. Oh, by the way, I said, all sweetness, do you remember what classes I took in high school? Just curious. She blinked. Math? Or was it history? Bingo. She knew nothing. Not about my life, my dreams, my grief. She just knew I had money now. I stood up. You don't care about me. You care about what I inherited. This reunion? It's not about love. It's about leverage. Her mouth opened, but I was already walking toward the door. You had your chance, I said quietly. Now you can live with your choices. I left without another word. After walking out of my mum's house, I didn't feel angry. I didn't cry. I didn't even feel shocked. Honestly, I felt light. That heavy weight I'd carried for years, the hope that maybe one day she'd say she was sorry, that she missed me, that I mattered, it finally slipped off my shoulders. I'd been holding my breath around her my whole life, and for once, I let it go. I didn't tell Mia and Jeremy every detail, just that I'd seen enough and that I wouldn't be going back. They didn't press. Jeremy just poured me some tea and said, some people only show up when they smell money. Doesn't mean you owe them anything. He was right. I owed them nothing. A week later, I visited my dad. I knew it wouldn't be any different, but part of me, some deeply buried version of that 12-year-old girl, needed to see it for herself. His wife opened the door. Same cold, forced smile she always wore, like her face forgot how to mean it. Inside, the house was cleaner than I remembered, like they'd tried to make it look warm, but I still felt like a guest. Their daughter, Lily, my half-sister, ran up to me. She must have been around 8, bright eyes, messy ponytail. Who are you? She asked. My dad cleared his throat. This is your sister, Emma. We sat in the living room making small talk. His stepson, Brandon, yes, the same kid who once put a fake spider on my face, was there too. To my surprise, he greeted me like an actual person. Hey, Emma. Long time. I'm Brandon, in case you forgot. I hadn't forgotten. But his tone was different now. Grown. Genuine. We made it through dinner. The food was decent. The conversation was civil. But the moment I felt the shift, the real reason for this reunion, it hit like a cold wave. Dad cleared his throat again. So, we heard about your inheritance. Of course. She's really smart, his wife added quickly, nodding toward Lily. We'd love to send her to this amazing private school, but, well, tuition's no joke. I looked at her, then at him. Neither one asked how I was. Neither one mentioned Grandma June, the woman who raised me, when they didn't want to. Instead, they talked about Lily's future like it was a pitch deck. I leaned back in my chair. Why now? They blinked at me. Why are you remembering I exist now? My stepmother's tone snapped. You're part of this family. We thought you'd want to help. I laughed quiet, dry, bitter. No, I'm not part of this family. You made sure of that years ago. She started to say something else, but I stood up. Don't contact me again. I walked to the door, didn't wait for a goodbye. I drove home in silence, windows down, heart steady. That was the last time I saw either of them. At first, the calls were non-stop. My mum, crying into voicemails. My dad, switching from guilt to threats. Texts like, "We're your family. You owe us. And I can't believe you're letting us struggle while you swim in money." I didn't respond. I blocked every number. I didn't need to win. I just needed peace. I poured myself into school. Clinicals were intense rotations at the ER, long hours shadowing trauma teams. I was exhausted, constantly covered in ink, caffeine, and the faint scent of latex gloves. But I loved it. every second, every patient, every hard-earned lesson. One night, after a brutal shift, my phone rang again. But this time, it was a name I didn't expect. Brandon. I picked up cautiously. "Hey," he said. "It's weird to call, I know. I didn't say anything. I just wanted to say sorry. For the spider. For everything. I was a stupid kid. I really regret how I treated you." I raised an eyebrow even though he couldn't see it. It was over a decade ago. I know. I still think about it. You didn't deserve any of it. This isn't about the money, I swear. I'm not like them. We ended up talking for almost an hour. He was studying engineering, surprisingly funny, and a lot more grounded than I remembered. There was no awkward begging, no subtle requests. Just a sincere apology and some unexpected laughter. Over the next few months, we kept in touch. We grabbed coffee, vented about school, swapped study hacks. He became something I never thought he'd be, a friend. Meanwhile, my life moved forward. Graduation day came faster than I thought. Standing in that cap and gown, I scanned the crowd until I found them, my parents. My real parents, Mia and Jeremy. Their hands clapped wildly as I walked across the stage. I locked eyes with them and saw the kind of pride I used to dream about. And right beside them, cheering just as hard, was Brandon. After the ceremony, I hugged them tight. I didn't look around for my birth parents. I knew they weren't there. They hadn't earned the right to see who I'd become. In the months after graduation, I started my residency. Long shifts, no sleep, scrubs always wrinkled. But I had purpose. I had peace. Then one afternoon, Brandon and I were grabbing coffee when he mentioned Lily again. "She's smart," he said. "Always reading, always asking questions. But Dad and my stepmom? They don't get it. They don't push her." I sipped my drink. "Sounds familiar. She reminds me of you sometimes," he said. That hit me harder than I expected. I thought about Lily, just a little girl in a messy house, probably trying to shine in a place that didn't want her to, the way I used to. I didn't owe my birth parents anything. But Lily? She was innocent, a kid who didn't get to choose the people around her, just like I didn't. "Maybe," I said slowly, "I could help. Quietly, a college fund. Something in her name." Brandon nodded. "She'd never forget it. Neither would I." That night, I sat on my balcony under soft string lights, the air warm and still. I thought about everything that had led me here. The abandonment, the hurt, the tiny kindnesses that kept me afloat. Mia, who made every meal feel like love. Jeremy, who never once raised his voice but made me feel safe with silence. June, who saw a scared teenager and handed her a garden, a future, and the means to create something better. I wasn't the scared girl in the closet anymore. I wasn't the kid begging to be seen. I was Dr. Emma Moore now. I had a life I built from scratch, a family I chose, and just maybe the chance to be someone else's safe place, just like someone once was for me.